Good afternoon, everybody. I'm your host, Simply C, and I am in the studio with Doug Spartz, renowned musician. You're an amazing musician, sir. I saw you a few weeks ago at St. Anne's residency. You stopped by to play, but you have a plethora of different music and different people and an amazing story under your belt.
Well, I guess you could say that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm an old person, of course. I've been up and down a lot of roads.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's nice to be here, by the way.
Of course. Thank you. Thank you for stopping in and sharing your afternoon before your next gig.
Well, thanks for inviting us.
Mm-hmm. Of course. And now, Doug, how did you get started in music?
Well, I started playing when I was about 16.
Okay.
That's 482 years ago, of course. Long time ago, I started in 1962, actually, playing in a group.
Okay.
And that was a group called the Fabulous Embers. You know, everybody in those days was the superlative this, the unbelievably that, and the fabulous that. And that's kind of how the names went. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, all the personal names ended in EE. So everybody was Bobby Lee and Buddy D and Billy G and the Fabulous Somethings. Mm-hmm. Names from the early 60s.
Okay. All right. What was that kind of first band like for you? Was it bubblegum kind of pop, kind of Beatles sounding, or maybe something kind of like the Yardbirds?
No, that was pre-Beatles, but not very much.
Okay.
Come to think of it, it was not very much pre-Beatles. It was Louie, the Kingsmen. It was all sorts of songs from the late 50s and early 60s that we considered rock and roll. I couldn't sleep at all last night. Just things that were pretty simple. Mm-hmm. And music was pretty simple then.
Okay.
You know, we didn't have anybody to really teach us. We just would buy a record, and whatever we could grasp from the record is what we did. Mm-hmm. You know, it wasn't like we went to rock and roll school. There wasn't any. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Simple stuff.
All right.
And the Beatles changed a lot of that.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And how did your music kind of blossom from there, from being a 16-year-old guitar player, I'm assuming, to who you are today?
Well, bearing in mind that success for us wasn't very well defined.
Okay.
You know, we just, if we could go out and impress the girls and have a beer once in a while, that was a big deal. Mm-hmm. Playing in a band was a big deal.
Okay.
So success for us was when we were able to play the major ballroom circuit.
Okay.
And for some reason, which I can't explain, it never occurred to us that we should be in the studio and we should be writing songs. Mm-hmm. But that came about 2 years later. But by then, the Embers was history, and two other bands were history, and then kind of landed in Minneapolis with a recording situation where we had free studio time, and it was our job to get the next hit. A band called the Trashmen had gotten a hit just before the Beatles landed on us, and it was called Surfer Bird, and it was just a crazy song. Had you ever heard that?
I have, yes.
And they were good friends. And we first went in the studio to embellish their opportunities, but as it kind of changed, we had a recording trio, and Tony, the guitarist, and the drummer from the Trashmen ended up being sort of our sidemen, if that's an appropriate way to say it.
Okay.
We all worked on the project to see if we could get another hit, but of course, with the Beatles and every other group from England occupying the charts, that was history. And a lot of our major people bit the dust then.
Oh, okay.
And so we just were unable to do anything that managed to penetrate the charts. We had our regional, local things, of course, but we weren't able to launch anything nationally, but it wasn't necessarily our fault. Mm-hmm. You know, we had a producer and we had a distributor and a person who had the responsibility to get us played on radio and all those things. Mm-hmm. And of course, they were battling and fighting for whatever their thing was that was going on.
Right.
All those folks, of course, are gone now. We can't ask them why they did different things. So, at any rate, that eventually ended, except for an album with all of our songs from those days.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was on to different things.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And what kind of different things did your path take then?
Well, the big different thing was that I became converted to Christianity.
Okay.
And that put a dent in that program real quickly. And so I spent the next 7 or 8 years not being involved in music as I knew it.
Okay.
You know, there was the church band and things like that, but it wasn't. And then I did reach a time where I realized that I'd taken a right turn without doing a whole lot of studying and planning. And so I left that group, which now as I think back was a cult, we would call them.
Oh, okay.
Out of Pasadena, California. And it was pretty rigid cult. Real life change for me.
Okay.
And then, of course, I immediately went back to music, which was my love before all of that. Not that that changed. It's just that it was a full-time job being in this group.
Right, right.
You know. And by then I had children and a family and all those things. And then my next thing was to start my own group again and go back to playing, which by that time had changed totally. There weren't ballrooms anymore like there were. There were bars and clubs.
Okay.
And by that time, it's Creedence Clearwater Revival and all of that monkey business is going on. So it was sort of learning a lot of new songs in a new market. And it did real well with that band. It was called the Sunshine Band, and kind of a square name, but that's what it was. And it was a trio that could play any kind of music, and so we were successful for that reason. We played country, we played rock and roll, we played our own songs, we played folk, whatever the situation called for. So that takes me pretty much through the time that I started really recording again.
Okay.
And have been recording pretty much steadily for many, many years, starting in the 90s. It'd be before then. Sunshine album was actually in 78 or so in that period. And then I started doing a lot more work in Nashville and doing country things, thinking that, I'm getting a little old in the tooth for anything else, which of course was accurate. And so there were several levels of that, where we had some success in independent radio, and then we had a chance to actually chart on Billboard, country charts. And eventually that also reached a time when that wasn't practical anymore. And it kind of tied into as you get older.
Okay.
Market changes, they're young artists. The listening public has different tastes based on what they've been fed for a period of time.
Right, right.
So then we eventually got to a place where I experienced just all I can say is it was lucky.
Okay.
There wasn't any way to say, well, I did this and this, so this happened. Because if I could track it, it would definitely be behind the fact, not planning something in advance. But we went to Arkansas, where there was a studio where a lot of fellows from Nashville who were disenchanted with that scene as the music moved out of Nashville to other areas. And they could no longer function as studio people there and make any money. They then started their own studio in Arkansas. And they were famous folks and playing for famous people. And they were very good. So I had a chance to do many albums with that studio group, which helped me a lot. And we released a number of those, and some were successful and some were not.
And now, Doug, how many records do you have under your belt, or albums, I should say?
I'm going to say ones that were really albums that were what we know of as a 12-song, either an LP or a CD or whatever. I'm probably around 30.
Okay.
But there's many, many more than that where I was on compilation CDs. I'm on CDs with other people, hits of the Midwest, and whatever you want to call them, that were different projects that I was involved in. A lot more than that. I don't know exactly what it might be.
Okay.
For instance, when karaoke started up, there's a whole different market there. I think if you were to look on a lot of people's karaoke lists, I'm still have some of my songs that are there. So I don't know how many it would be. It'd be a lot of them, you know.
All right, wonderful. And now, how has the recording experience kind of changed for you? I know that, it was the analog and the vinyl, then jumping to tapes and then CDs, and now it's all digital. I mean, people make albums on their computers at home now.
Well, all the mystery is out of that business now.
Okay.
And all the shysters and folks that used to victimize us, especially in Nashville, no longer have the opportunity to do that because anybody with Pro Tools in their basement can produce something of higher quality than we could ever do by going to Nashville or any other center for that matter. I haven't released a major album now since 2007.
Okay.
And I have several in the can, as we call it. Some that we've done that we could release, but what does that mean these days? There is no album sales as such.
Right.
That whole thing has disappeared. We do receive some royalties in smaller amounts now from people who download our stuff or buy our product online. But to release an album in the sense that we would have normally done, with promotion and with people to try to get it played on the air and all those things is just gone. There's no reason to do that. So we've had to look for different markets to play and different markets to do anything where you're trying to get your music out there. And it's pretty much online now.
Right. And was that a difficult transition for you from kind of that analog, you hand your CD over to somebody, to now an online market and almost a platform of you do it yourself?
No, it actually, there's a sense of relief.
Okay.
That there's no system you have to learn to get something done. The problem was back in the day, no matter what you did and how well you did it, if you didn't have a major label deal and distribution and promotion and a publicist, you had no chance.
Okay.
And even if you did have all these things, which we did on different occasions, you aren't going to compete with the big guys.
Okay.
It's in their very, very vested interest to keep you from getting one spin on one station anywhere. So for most of the time, we're going to folks like you, college radio, Americana folks, and we did very well in that market. But then the thing starts coming up that we have no control over. We started getting sick all the time. You know, I'm pointing at Cindy. Cindy wasn't getting sick. I was. So that started after we released the record you have over there called, well, the record before that one, because the name of this album, The One Who's Leaving, was done after I got really sick.
Okay.
And then decided, well, I think I have an album in me yet if I can get down to Arkansas and do it. So we went right from the hospital, didn't we? And got on a plane and went to Arkansas. And they were great. The airlines got me, wheelchair and all that stuff and transportation and treated me really like royalty, So I went down to Arkansas and made that album, which you have over there, called The One Who's Leaving. And that one was the most successful album that I ever did.
Okay.
But that was the last one.
Mm-hmm.
And it was already past the time where you could really do anything and expect it to have a chance.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been an interesting transition. But at the same time that the old system didn't work anymore, the new system works far better for the young people that are able to use the internet and all of those things for the way that it now has to be used. And of course, I don't have even a suspicion how to do that. You know, we have in Minneapolis now a pretty prominent center for folks. Just reading Dan Wilson this morning, who's a well-known songwriter from Minnesota who's writing songs for everybody and pretty much has done that through the internet, and lots of others. So we have an internet presence of sorts, but it's not great. You know, we don't know how to do everything that those young folks do.
Oh, okay. All right. Wonderful, Doug. Doug, do you mind if we take a listen to one of your songs
Not at all.
off the album here? Let's take a listen to the title track, The One Who's Leaving.
Sure.
I just happened to be thinking about my baby yesterday. How I saw my whole world ended when she died and went away. It's been 6 years come April, Daddy's pain was finally gone. He went home to join Mama, and somehow my life went on. There's been family and lovers who have left me here behind. They've gone to join the others, each one in their time. So it was no big surprise when the phone rang yesterday. Someone else was leaving and would soon be called away. Here's to Willie Nelson and the Superman, wives and friends and lovers and a family. So long to new tomorrows and what might have been, 'cause the one who's leaving this time is me. I almost hit the floor with the words the doctor said. Put your house in order, by September you'll be dead. When I told the news to my new love, she cried just like I did. We joked about vacations we planned to take, but never did. Now there's funerals and bills and last requests, and I made all my amends. I did the things I had to do, and I guess that's where it ends. So I hope you get this letter about my party in July. Bring your own refreshments. Thank you and goodbye. Goodbye. So protected by Superman. Wives and friends and lovers and my family. No more new tomorrows, and I think I can't. There's one who's leaving this time. The one who's leaving this time is me.
Wonderful song by Doug Spartz. He's in the studio with me this afternoon. This is another edition of the 9 o'clock Meltdown here on 91.3 KUWS right here in Superior. And now that album came about, you were in pretty bad shape and you thought you had one album left in you. And where did that one take you?
Well,
obviously, you're still here, so.
Yeah, I don't have any way to explain that. It just turned out that we had gifted people at Mayo, and they did the right stuff, and here we are, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But there was more bad stuff after this, you
Okay.
know. It was just, we kind of got it all out of the way at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
It was quite a period of about a year there where there were just, you know, heart attacks and just stuff happening.
Mm-hmm. Did you notice that kind of changed your music at all, or?
Well, I think it probably did.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it was made you think a little more seriously about what you're supposed to be doing here.
Okay.
You know, and I'm not confident I still know the answer to that one. You know, it just is. The stuff that we're doing now, we couldn't have ever imagined we'd be doing.
Okay.
Like now that we play at a lot of hospitals and care centers and things like that, where it isn't about money or other reasons. It's just you do it because it's the right thing to do.
Right.
And we would never have imagined that we'd be doing that. We would be, I don't know, playing out in some bar somewhere, I suppose, for somebody who would still hire people our age, you know. And so, yeah, it's someday maybe I'll have a chance to kind of track all this and figure out whether was there really some plan in action here that I don't know about, or why are we where we are, and why didn't we get signed to a major deal when Name on the Wall was out there? You know, why didn't somebody grab that? So it turns out someone did try to grab it, but I wasn't smart enough to make the right decision.
Oh, okay.
And that's a story that sounds like something someone is making up, but it's really true how it happened. Name on the Wall was a song that I wrote with my producer in Arkansas, and another one we got from a friend of ours named Fred Eaglesmith, who is a very famous Americana guy. And Fred writes very strange but wonderfully. So we had a song called Number 29 from Fred, which we recorded, and then we had Name on the Wall, which we recorded. And both of them did tremendously well. And so Name on the Wall was my first opportunity to have people seeking us out and trying to get us to sign and talking about the publishing and different things. And I had a strange thing happen when a fellow who was Prince's manager
Okay.
heard the song, and everything changed for us because I was so intimidated and impressed by the fact that Gilbert would be interested in anything that I was doing, that, of course, we went with Gilbert instead of the other people who wanted us, which had a large hand in making stars at Columbia Records and at RCA and different places, and were very prominent people. And then we tried to put the three of them together in some sort of a team, and of course it didn't work. It was just fighting and arguing constantly about things. And so our timing was great, but our decisions weren't good.
Oh, okay.
So the time went by, and then there is a time always when something should be done, and then it's not any good to do it after that.
Mm-hmm.
So we missed that window in addition to getting sick.
Mm-hmm.
So that put a stop to Name on the Wall, although it came back and charted on Billboard the next year again during Memorial Day,
Okay.
during that whole period when they started playing the song again. But a strange experience also we had that I need to tell you about because it has some humor attached to it.
Okay.
You know, of course, that there's 3 stations or 3 companies that control almost all the stations.
Yes.
And we call them the 3 C's, and you can probably name them without me having to tell you. There was one of those stations in Arizona that a year after Name on the Wall discovered Name on the Wall and started playing it.
Okay.
And it was a Billboard reporting station, too. And so they got us involved in these contests that these country stations have. They call it Make It or Break It, or they call it whatever they call it, and they put you up against Tim McGraw or whoever it is, and they play your record, and whoever wins then gets played the next week against someone else.
Okay.
So this happened, this is a year after Name on the Wall is like gone. And Name on the Wall killed everybody that they put it up against. So finally and of course I'm trying to get the program director to add us to his playlist.
Right, right.
And I'm knowing that he can't do that unless he has permission from Indianapolis. He can't do it. But I'm thinking, well, geez, this thing is it's doing great. And they have me on the radio like maybe twice a week doing interviews. And so we get a call from him. He shall remain nameless. And he says, well, Doug, all good things must end. So this week you're up against Tim McGraw's new tune. And I'm going, oh, wow, that's the end of this thing. But it wasn't. We beat up Tim McGraw.
Oh.
Yeah, and just an accident. But then we have this little following now in Arizona. So they're probably thinking, well, we're going to vote for old Doug here. So then I thought, well, now they're forced to put us into rotation.
Okay.
And we have like 20 other Billboard stations that are playing us in what's called light rotation. And you know what that is. It can play you once or twice a week, or they can play you at 2 in the morning. And so they've all promised, if you get one Billboard station to put you in heavy rotation, we're all in.
Okay.
But then they wouldn't. It kept being, well, Doug, you're right at the top of the stack here, And so they didn't have permission to do that. So that was the last harsh reality of the way real life is, that's just the way this one is going to go. But it was fun, and I'm grateful that we had a chance to experience that in our life.
Right.
And it's like Marilyn Sellers told me once. Marilyn is a gal that had One Day at a Time was a song from the late 60s, and she had a monstrous hit record with that.
Okay.
Never had another one. And Marilyn is a good friend, and she said, well, Doug, once is better than not at all.
Right,
So
right.
just enjoy that you did that, and then you go on with life from there. So that's our goal, too. So we're grateful for all of that.
Yes, of course. Oh, that's a wonderful story.
Yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful. And we were talking a little bit earlier during the song that you had Bob Dylan's harmonica player featured on one of your songs on the album I have here. How did that come about?
Well, Billy Lee Riley was one of the people from Sun Studios.
Okay.
Old, with Roy Orbison and everybody. Billy Lee was there, and he had a hit called Little Green Men. And what was the other one, hon? My Baby's Red Hot. Those were Billy Lee's claims to fame. But he also was a studio guy for the Beach Boys.
Okay.
They weren't great players in those early days, so he was involved in all those records along with Glenn Campbell and a lot of other folks. And Billy Lee was a star in Europe because they like rockabilly in Europe. And so Billy Lee and I became friends through both of us being involved in the Americana format. And I started using Billy on all my albums. I'd do one song with Billy, and he'd play harp and sing a verse or two. And years ago, he used to open for Bob. for Bob Dylan. And so Billy got very, very sick. And so we were Billy's friend right to the end, but, you know, there was nothing that could be done. He finally passed away. And so I guess we knew Billy for a couple of years, and that's all. But he had a huge, long career, you know, good days and bad days.
All right. Do you mind if we take a listen to the song featuring him?
No, what do we have on there? Oh, Ring Them Bells, yes.
All
yeah,
right.
I really loved what Billy did on there.
All right. Wonderful.
Ring them bells, you heathen, from the city that dreams. Ring them bells from the sanctuaries across the valleys and streams. But they're deep and they're wide, and the world's on its side. Time is running backward, and so is the bride.
Ring them bells, St. Peter, where the full wind blows. Ring them bells with an iron hand so that people will know. For it's fresh hour now on the wheel and the plow. And the sun is going down now on the sacred cow.
Ring them bells, sweet Martha, for the poor man's son. Ring them bells so the world will know that God is one. Oh, the shepherds asleep where the willows weep, and the mountains are filled with his lost sheep. Ring them bells for the blind and deaf. Ring them bells for all of us who are left. Ring them bells for the chosen few who will judge the many when the game is through. Ring them bells for the time that flies, for the child that cries when innocence dies.
Ring them bells, St. Catherine, from the top of the roof. Ring them from the fortress for the lilies that bloom. For the lines are long and the fighting strong, and they're breaking down the distance between right and wrong.
Ring them bells for the blind and deaf. Ring them bells for all of us who are left. Ring them bells for the chosen few who will judge the many when the game is through. Ring them bells for the time that flies, for the child that cries when innocence dies. Ring them bells, you heathen, from the city that dreams. Ring them bells from the sanctuaries across the valley and streams. For they're deep and they're wide, and the world's on its side. Time is running backward, and so is the bride.
An absolute wonderful song by Doug Spartz. He's in the studio with me this afternoon. Thank you so much for coming in and kind of sharing your amazing life with us this afternoon. Just to kind of do a recap, you started out in the early 60s at 16 playing guitar and in a couple rockabilly bands, and then just kind of migrated down to California, Arkansas, Tennessee and got on the Billboard country charts there for a little while as well.
Yes.
And now what's coming up for you next?
Well, we built a theater
Okay.
in Pine River on our property, our home, intending to do shows there. But so far, it has not worked out for us.
Oh, okay.
So we will continue to probably do some performing arts shows, and we intend completely to continue doing our solos also. And whether it be a utility meeting for, the electric company party, or whether it be a house party, whether it be a independent living senior place, whoever would like to have us, we're there. And we're capable of doing all those types of music, especially if we're doing solos, So we'll do whatever seems to be the direction we're supposed to go. Because after all, we can plan whatever we want, but that isn't what determines what we do.
Right.
No.
And now, Doug, do you play with a band ever, or are you more on a solo kick?
On occasion I do, but I'm liking it less and less all the time.
Okay.
I never have my guitar quit or not show up for the job, So it's nice just with Cindy and I not having to be responsible for someone else. And the folks that we're playing for are liking it. So we're going to probably keep doing that. I love to play with a band, but I don't love all the monkey business that goes along with it. And sometimes the monkey business comes from me, not from them. It's just the whole interaction of 4 or 5 people from different walks of life trying to get up on the same stage.
Right.
And today, musicians aren't real anxious to rehearse material. Or not at least unless they're being paid to do so. And so it's a little tougher that way.
Okay. All right. So, Doug, any albums in the works? I know you said that you've got a couple in the can at home.
Yes.
Any thoughts on releasing those?
Well, oddly enough, we started titling and theming our stuff in the can before it was popular to do themed shows.
Okay.
So I've got a whole album full of Bob Dylan material. I've got a whole album called Coffee House Kitchen, which is all folky kind of stuff that we've written over the years and different things like that. And so I guess if or until there's a reason to do it, I'd love to release another Americana album. It's just that, do I want to spend all day calling radio stations and won't you please play my song? Do I want to try to get us in No Depression with a article? Do I want to go through all of that? I'm not sure I do. It just is. We had a chance to be a little more public with our efforts, and we've charted and we've done all of those things, and so it's sort of like playing before was a secondary thing, or singing to trying to get somewhere. Now we get our enjoyment day to day and playing and singing. And I'm not so sure that isn't better than trying to be somebody.
Okay.
No?
All right. And you definitely have a lot of experience kind of in both walks. Like you said, trying to be somebody and then being very grounded in kind of that Americana kind of roots effort.
Yeah, and it's you wish that as you look back that you'd have made different decisions in the very beginning. Especially when we had those opportunities when we were just kids and had free studio time and go write something, get something good that we can get on the air,
Right.
And opportunities people would kill for, we had given to us back in the early 60s. And we'd come in the studio and just kind of goof off, if you will. Where are the girls, or whatever it was. So, it's good today. We're very happy today the way things are going. And we wish we could get the theater going a little better. But we're happy to be here today. and the reasons that brought us up here today and the reason that we got to know you.
Oh, thank you.
So it's all good.
All right, wonderful, Doug. And now if someone's interested in booking you for a show or for an interview or something like that, how can they do that?
Maybe you want to cover that, Cindy, huh?
Yeah. Yeah. Cindy, go for it.
Well, you can go onto his Facebook page, which is Doug Spartz Music, and that's Spartz, and contact us through that, or you can reach him at dspartz@tds.net. That would be dspartz@tds.net.
All right.
And we would be happy to talk to you.
All right. Wonderful, Cindy. Cindy, the lovely and wonderful manager.
Yes. I'm very happy that she's along.
Good. And how did you two meet? Just for a couple final questions here.
Cindy used to be my booking agent.
Okay.
Yes. And my first wife had ovarian cancer, which
Oh, I'm
eventually
sorry.
took her. And so Cindy and I hooked back up again. And you know, this way I don't have to pay a commission. Bad joke.
Typical musician.
I know, right? They want
can I
everything for
save a
free and
So Cindy and I have been married now for, as of our anniversary was this week.
Yes, the day we were up here.
Oh,
and met.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Nine years now.
wonderful.
Yes.
Wonderful. And, you know, I kind of thought that, but I didn't want to make assumptions. So, you know, some working relationships are marriages. So,
Yes, for sure.
all right, wonderful.
She's a very important part of what we're doing these days. And part of it is just getting me from point A to point B in the simplest possible manner, which is never simple. You know, so it's good. And and all the little things she does, which are big things, you know. So she does most of the booking and calling folks and that sort of thing.
All right.
She also sets all the stuff up and tears it down,
Yes, I noticed the other day when you were
runs
in.
the sound,
Yep, you brought in your little cart and your little soundboard.
and forbids me to touch a thing.
oh,
Yeah, if you'll notice, I just, it's easier for me just to tear it down and set it up myself, and I tell him just step aside. And
go be the artist.
that's a controlling part of me that came from many years of being on my own. So
Thank you for taking this time. We appreciate it.
Yes, of course, Doug. Thank you so much. And thank you, Cindy, for sharing your afternoon with us. We'll listen to one final song here. This has been another edition of the 9 o'clock Meltdown. I'm your host, Simply C, and I will be back next week.
May God bless and keep you always. May your wishes all come true. May you always do for others and let others do for you. May you build a ladder to the stars and climb on every rung, and may you stay forever young. May you grow up to be righteous. May you grow up to be true. May you always know the truth and see the light surrounding you. May you always be courageous, stand upright and strong, and may you stay forever young. Forever young. Forever young. May you stay forever young. May your hands always be busy, may your feet always be swift. May you have a strong foundation when the winds of changes shift. May your heart always be joyful, may your song always be sung, may you stay